Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Bastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vinamta Swamani Tanamani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Navasesha Sunyavadi Paskati Desatarane. Om Agyanataminanda Sadhana Jana Salakaya Chaksus Meditanjena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. Sri Caitanya Manabhistam Stopitam Jena Bhutale Sayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sapandantikam Vanchakopatubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhe Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Now we're reading from the Antya Lila, the last part of Chaitanya Caritamrita. It's divided into 3 parts. The Adi, the first part, then the Madhya, which means the middle, and then the Antya is the final part. And this final part, the last part especially, is very intimate, describing the internal ecstasies of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu in the last 12 years of his life. So we're up to the 12th verse, where Krishnadas Kaviraj, the author, has described something about himself. And now he's going to begin what he wants to say as he begins the Antya Lila. When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu returned to Jagannath Puri from Vrindavan, because earlier it described in the 16th chapter of the Madhya Lila, the middle pastimes, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to go to Vrindavan. And then there were many things that happened on his way to Vrindavan. And then when he was in Vrindavan, and also he instructed Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami in Prayag and in what Allahabad is, what it's called Prayag now, yes, yeah. And Benares, Rupa Goswami. And then he returned back to Jagannath Puri, where he was staying. And when he returned to Jagannath Puri from Vrindavan, Srup Damodar Goswami immediately sent news of the Lord's arrival to the devotees in Bengal. Because when Mahaprabhu took sannyas, all the devotees who were like in the same village as him, practically speaking, and his dearest friends, and he would chant with them every night. And he opened up, even though they were his eternal associates, he opened up the spiritual world for them by his association. And then suddenly he left, and he took sannyas, and the standard rule was that you never return again to your village, the village that you came from. So after Mahaprabhu took sannyas, they were so eager to see him, and they came to Jagannath Puri. But then when he went to Vrindavan and then returned, immediately Srup Damodar, who's the secretary of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, told the devotees of the Lord's that he had returned to Jagannath Puri, and immediately they wanted to come. So upon hearing this news, Mother Sachi and all the other devotees of Nabadvip were very joyful, and they all departed together for Nilachala, Jagannath Puri. I don't think Mother Sachi actually came, though, did she? I never heard that. But she was overjoyed anyway. When they all departed together means they all went together, but Mother Sachi was elderly and she didn't come. All the devotees of Kalinagram and Sri Khanda, these are the different, there were quite a few centers of Mahaprabhu's followers, devotees, as well as Advaitacharya. They came together to meet Shivananda Sen. Shivananda Sen was the one who really knew the path from Bengal to Jagannath Puri. And in those days, how do you think they traveled? Yeah, they walked. Now, what's the hard thing about going by foot?
Cracked feet.
Cracked feet. And what else? You have to carry your luggage. But you probably carried less than we would nowadays. Just they had to be so simple because you have to carry everything with you, exactly. But what's the other hard thing? But actually it describes later how when they came, even though they would, for themselves, they just carried practically nothing, but they carried bags and bags of food for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because of their this is called the burden of love, something that it's difficult to do, but you're motivated to do it, not by selfishness and fear of one's own loss for oneself, but out of giving pleasure to another. So this is just the opposite of what doesn't make us happy in one sense. That doing selfish things, we think we're not happy, so therefore we do things for ourselves and the ones when we take ourself and then we expand the mood of self onto something that's not ourself. That's called mine. So this has nothing to do with me. So this is my tablet, this is my table, this is my lodi. So it's mine when I expand the sense of self into something that's not the self. And our lives are basically involved in trying to become happy by increasing our happiness of self, by doing selfish things doing things for ourselves, but that doesn't make us happy at all. What makes us happy is ultimately service. And serving, but not just doing service. Like in India, there's when you ask someone what do they do, what's your service, they usually don't mean devotional service. They mean what job do you have? But that's the word in English is service, but in Sanskrit it's seva for devotional service, and the other is more or less work. So seva is what's supposed to give us pleasure. And why do I say it's supposed to give us pleasure? Is because and it's different from work. Is because seva is done with devotion. And it's done for Krishna's pleasure or Krishna's dear ones. So they would carry so much food, but it was done out of love for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And they would walk, and they didn't mind cracked feet. They didn't mind having to deal with the tolls. They didn't have to mind dealing with not only is it hard because of the tolls and the cracked feet, but you don't even know where you're going to sleep that night. And you don't know where your food is going to come from. If it's the kind of food you like, not the kind of food you don't like. But this wasn't a consideration. The inconveniences weren't a consideration because of the devotees from Navadvips, their love from all these places, Srikanda, Kuliagram, they all just had so much love, you couldn't hold them back. As soon as they heard that Mahaprabhu had come, they immediately wanted to go and see him. And they had to walk, probably, I would guess, did you ever walk? Have you walked from Mayapur to Jagannath Puri? Have you?
No, Jagannath, Brajman.
Okay. But there's an ecstasy in it, too. So, okay, we were asking about what's the difficulties, so that you have to carry the things, you don't know where your food's going to come from, you can't carry very much, and the burden of love sometimes gets heavy, and there might be someone you don't like on the journey, someone troubles you. But what's the good side of the slow way of going on pilgrimage as opposed to the fast way? Like the fastest way, of course, is taking a plane or a train or even a taxi. But walking has this benefit, this amazing benefit that your mind gets there before your body. because you're thinking of the person you're going to be with. You're thinking of what you're going to do there, what the place looks like. You're remembering it, and you can't wait to get there. And when you go the very fast way by plane, what happens, of course, is that your body gets there, but you're dislocated from your mind. Your mind is somewhere else. So this is the glory of going on pilgrimage in the old-fashioned walking way, is that you have the time to contemplate where you're going, what the purpose of, what are you going to do there? Why are you taking all this trouble to go to somewhere else? All the inconveniences we were talking about. You're taking that trouble for a reason. In this case, it was to go to the Holy Land of Jagannath Puri to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So you'd be thinking, the mind would be dwelling on that. And by the time you'd get there, you would be, and then you'd actually see Lord Jagannath, or you'd see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then it would cause such anandita, such happiness in the heart. So, and again, you know what that is? Owl, right? A couple of nights ago, there were two of them, and they were having a territorial dispute.
There's a couple here.
Yeah. The couple doesn't get along very well. They're always fighting.
Then BRC must be lucky. They ask him the vehicle of Lakshmi.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. So, as we said, you don't know what's going to happen on your journey when you go this way. And you walked on Braj Mandal how many times? And you did it the real austere way, when you don't know where you're going, you're just depending. But of course, the Braj culture is to take care of people who do that. But it's exciting. You feel alive.
Yeah, first time is difficult, but second time is easy.
Yeah. Could you do it again?
If I get that energy back, yeah.
Yeah. If you were 15 years younger. But Mahaprabhu walked all the way from after taking sannyas, he walked all the way to Jagannath Puri from Katwa, or actually from even the Radhadesh, the part of the Bengal. He walked all the way, and he was in ecstasy. And he walked all of South India. And the mood of just depending on Krishna. Just depending on Krishna. What's the result of that? Just depending on Krishna. Either you get faith or you lose your faith. One or the other. Because then you find out if Krishna, because we hear that Krishna takes care of his devotees. So then you find out. And there's a famous story of when one great devotee, disciple of Sri Ramanujacharya, asked him how to increase his faith. Then Ramanujacharya said, walk south, go south. So he walked. So he immediately, being a faithful disciple of this exalted spiritual master, began walking south. And he thought, where am I going to stay? And then he found someone said, stay here. And then they fed him. And then the next day he walked south further. And then same thing happened. He had a place to stay. He had a place to, some food. And then after a week, which was what he told him to do it, he came back but faithful. So we don't just walk south, but we have a different method, and it's called service. You do seva for Krishna.
You had that example, or you felt that in Hong Kong?
Yeah, but I didn't want to tell that story.
Oh,
Yeah, I also found out, and now I have to tell it, right?
sorry.
But it's hard to tell stories about yourself. But I couldn't. We were in Hong Kong, and it was just myself and Jagatarini, my wife, and we had just been married a short time, and she wasn't even initiated maybe yet. She was 20 years old, and I was 22 years old, just she had been chanting like 6 months or something like that, and she was asked to go to Hong Kong. So we were there, and somehow I'd collected about $200, which seemed like a lot in those days. And we didn't have any. We were staying in places you wouldn't believe. You would be shocked where we had to stay. But we were young, and it was an adventure too. But somehow I collected about $200, and I put it as a down payment for a deposit on an apartment, and then it got held up. I mean, not like nothing happened. I couldn't get the money, and nor did I get the apartment. So for approximately 2 weeks, I remembered as I had 5 Hong Kong dollars, and Secretary remembers that I didn't have any money. We didn't have any money. Maybe I didn't tell her about the 5 Hong Kong dollars that I had, but 5 Hong Kong dollars was less than a US dollar. I don't know how many rupees it was. But for that 2 weeks before the money came back, it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life, because there we were, young, foolish, adventurous, but not really knowing any of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, not just being devotees, but not devoted so much perhaps. But every day someone would come and pay our rent, because we were living in a guest house, and someone would bring food, or someone would do this, and someone would do that. And I was never in my whole life in less anxiety about money, because I didn't have any money to be in anxiety about. There was nothing to protect, nothing to save. And then every day I went on, and I remember what I was thinking. I was thinking, wait a second, this is not ordinary. I was conscious of this. And I understood it, and I thought, maybe this is all true, that Krishna actually protects and everything, because we're young. And you have to have experience before you hear and you believe it on a certain level. But then when you see it happening, then your faith, grows, or it becomes not just a belief, it becomes a reality. So, and then after the 2 weeks or so, I got the $200 back, and the supply got cut off immediately, and I had to pay for everything myself. Really, that's what it was like. What do you think about that? Because we were we were young, and we were innocent, and we were there. We didn't know anyone. We were just depending on Prabhupada and Krishna, and so it's almost like Krishna didn't have a choice. Almost, he had to take care of us. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the other devotees. So therefore, I said, if you want to increase your faith, you can read about everything, but you can also do some service and try your best to really please Krishna, to please Krishna's devotees, to please Prabhupada, to please the Vaishnavas, and see what happens. It won't be easy. There'll be tests, but you see if Krishna really protects. But you have to remain strong in the tests. So in any case, when you're going on this type of a journey, a yatra, to go see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri or whatever, you don't know what's going to happen, and sometimes different companions, different people come. Did you have anyone join you when you?
First time.
Yeah, I mean, some appeared and wanted to join. Do what you're doing now.
First time we did in a group, like a group of 4.
Yeah.
Second time alone.
You did it alone. Now, that's interesting. Which one was more exciting for you?
You will laugh. Different memories are there. Like I still remember the obstacles, like problems, because we are so much used to of items, like material things, like things which we use to keep our body clean and all these things. And when you walk like this, I was practically like empty hands. I was just doing in that way. So it was very difficult, and like you will, you will definitely laugh on this. Like every morning when I used to brush my teeth with this neem twig.
Yeah.
So what happened? Like sometimes this, some particles is stuck in between the teeth, and almost whole day I was fighting because I was not having any brush.
Yeah.
So like these kind of things were there. So if any day this kind of things happen, my consciousness was disturbed, like because my tongue was just going that direction only. I was hardly chanting. So different experiences were there.
You're right. I did laugh.
Sorry. Yeah. It's very,
because
later it was very interesting, of course. But there were many things
and you
which improved the consciousness.
And you could see how some little thing can cause so much trouble, but it doesn't cause trouble unless your consciousness dwells on it.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And then and how do you stop your tongue from going there when you have something stuck in there? So
after a couple of days, the tongue realized that there's no use. This is mind. I realized that this is mind. After a couple of days or week, you want to start understanding, and mind really keep you calm down.
That's the thing. It takes time for the mind to calm down. So which is the point, in one sense, why the people go the slow way. And there's difficulties, but there's benefits too, because it takes time for the mind to calm down, to slow down so that you can perceive something of what's really there. Because ultimately, it's Krishna who's there in all circumstances, and we're never separate from him. But because we're living in our mind all the time, and the mind is specifically engineered, so to speak, to not see Krishna, to just, we're only seeing ourselves, we're thinking about ourselves constantly, and everything that we see, we're seeing in relationship to ourselves, and I like this, and I don't like that, and this is nice, and this is causing me trouble in my teeth, and this is causing me pleasure. The mosquitoes are my enemies, flies, this, that. It's all about me, and that's miserable existence, and that's what it means to have a material mind, imagining that we're the center of everything, and everything is supposed, like the universe. I mean, when you think of it in these terms, we realize why we're not happy. It's like when you have a material mind, we think that the universe is supposed to cooperate and align itself to make us happy and do what we want. And of course, there's a problem, because there's 7 billion human beings also wanting the universe to do what they want, and what to speak of all the other animals. The mosquitoes are thinking that your body is meant for them, and you're thinking that they deserve to die for thinking of you as an object. So there's a conflict there, and Krishna this is everyone's material mind there. But the opposite of that, when the mind slows down, is you start seeing what's really there. And what's really there, ultimately, is Krishna. He's there in every place. This is so much of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, so much teachings of the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, or it's everywhere, that there's nothing. This is the essence, and one of the essential points is aham eva sameva great, that there's actually nothing in existence other than Krishna. Not that we worship everything like we're worshiping Krishna, but Krishna is connected to everything. So if one can actually lives in that consciousness, that I'm living in Krishna, and then one has a favorable relationship with Krishna, that one knows that I'm living in Krishna, practically speaking. This material world is Krishna's energy, Bhumira Pona, and I'm living in that. And you have that relationship with Krishna, trust that.
What do you mean, living in Krishna?
Well, if the material, like I'm living in a room, but if the room is made up of Krishna's energy, and it's not different from Krishna, I'm living in Krishna in that sense. And when I have that relationship with Krishna and seeing, oh, that Krishna's done this and Krishna's done that. So it sounds like a sentiment or a mood or something, but that's actually close to reality. And I say close to reality because we have some part in it too. But when we see Krishna in all things, yomam pashyati sarvatra sarvam dharmayi pashyati, that if you see Krishna in all things, I'm never lost to that person, nor is that person ever lost to me. That means we're living in Krishna always. It's Krishna consciousness. And then, if we have the loving relationship with Krishna, then we're living without beloved in that sense. And therefore, we have nothing to fear. Yeah. Any other questions or thoughts on this? What do you think?
I think that it was a new concept for me to envision living in Krishna as versus this is, the material and this is Krishna. This is the material, this is Krishna. So I'm wrapping my mind around this idea.
Well, that's actually our philosophy. Nirbandha Krishna Sambandha. This is Krishna's energy, and it's his, and it's used in his service. That's not a new concept for you, that things are, it's Krishna's energy. See, in the beginning we have to hear how the material world is such a miserable place because we're so attached to it. And that's our experience too. And it just confirms our experience that because we've tried to squeeze it for pleasure and it doesn't work, we get unpleasure from that. So first we have to learn some detachment. But then we have to, when we're a little detached, then we can start using everything in Krishna's service without attachment. This is for me and mine. So of course it sounds so sweet and easy, but of course it's not sweet and easy. Is that unless we're very advanced. But I remember when with Prabhupada, where are you from?
Ohio.
You?
Same, Ohio.
Okay. You know what Ohio means in Japanese? It means good morning. By the way. So, when Prabhupada was in New York, there was one. There were so many examples. He would just see things and think, how could this be used in Christian service? So, yeah, he would just see big buildings, and because he had no temple or nothing, and he would just go to places in New York just to think how these things shouldn't be rejected, but they should be used in Christian service. Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday, the difference between Yukta Vairagya and Vairagya, full detachment. So you asked which. It's easier to be completely detached, but it's not easier to be completely detached. It's easier when you're trying to do, it seems to be easier when you're doing Yukta Vairagya, but just try to live like a Vairagi. Yeah, that's really what we want to Kinsana. Dharma Kinsana Gochara. If we live detached from the world and then use everything in Krishna's service, if we have that relationship with Krishna, then Krishna is there for us. Because we have nothing else. So I was trying to get to the point where when you're going somewhere, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know who's going to join your group, so to speak. So one day, while going to Jagannath Puri, Shivananda Sen allowed a dog to go with him. He supplied it food to eat and maintained it. So in the West, dogs are given great honor. But in India, dogs aren't considered very, and actually they're quite unhealthy. They're filthy animals, actually, and they have so many parasites with them. But anyway, So he allowed this dog to accompany them. And this is, it's not the usual thing. But they were outside and he was following them. This happens sometimes. So he supplied it food to eat because he was a devotee and kind to all living entities. The dog was hungry. So the dog followed them. So one day when they needed to cross a river, an Orisan boatman, because they were all going to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, an Orisan boatman would not allow the dog to get in the boat with everyone else because he was a dog. He's a filthy animal. That people are very sensitive about these things. Even when you get in a boat, you have to take off your shoes. You know, he would not let the dog get in the boat. So what is Shivananda Sen going to do? He was unhappy that the dog had to stay behind because he had accepted him already as part of the group. And he would take care of the whole group. So he paid the boatman 10 panas of kansals extra to take the dog across the river. So money gets things done. It's always like that, no matter where you are. Prabhupada's in those days. And Prabhupada gives a little bit of history almost about, because it's saying that he gave him dasapana, 10 of these, whatever these panas were, the currencies. So Prabhupada says 1 pana is 80 kadas, or small conch shells. Formerly, even 50 or 60 years ago, there was no paper currency in India. Coins were generally made not of base metal, but of gold, silver, and copper. In other words, the medium of exchange was really something valuable. 4 pieces, and now what is it? So different nowadays because even paper currencies, they're out. And now what are they? In some countries, they make them out of plastic, the currencies. And not only that, they're trying to get rid of all cash currency transaction. And what came after that? First it was checks, and then credit cards, and now not even credit cards, it's just online transfer, so it's just some digital thing. And just imagine if the whole thing, the internet collapses, no one knows what anyone has, and it's very dangerous. And then now they have crypto, which is not even, what is cryptocurrency? Do you know? You've heard of it though?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, do you know what it is?
Well, same thing, heard it.
Yeah. Do you know what it is? Do you understand crypto? Yes?
I do, actually.
Yeah. You got into it, huh? Easy money, huh? That's the hope. But it's nothing.
It's based on nothing.
It's just nothing. That you create something and you bid for it, basically.
It's Bitcoin.
Huh? Bitcoin, yeah, cryptocurrency, Bitcoins, and it's just, there's nothing there at all. And you bid for it, but it's your nothing.
It's valued by demand only.
Yeah. But there's nothing there at all. It's so amazing. So, but in those days, so this kind of currency causes, or non-currency, and all this moving away from actual things of value causes such inflation. In other words, the medium of exchange was really something valuable. 4 pieces of kadi made 1 ganda, and 20 such gandas equaled 1 pana. This kadi was also used as a medium of exchange. Therefore, Shivananda Sen paid for the dog with dasapana, 80 times 10 pieces of kadi. In those days, 1 paisa was also divided into small conch shells. Annas, right? Do you remember that? Did that happen in your time? No.
Chalana, 8 anna. You've seen Chalana, 8 anna. 4 anna and 8 annas.
And 100 annas made a paisa, and paisas made a rupee. 100 paisa made a rupee, like that?
16 anna is 1 rupee.
Okay, 16 annas is 1 rupee.
16 anna?
Yeah. So, but at the present moment, the price for commodities has gone so high that there's nothing one can get in exchange for 1 paisa. I mean, when we first came to Vrindavan, when the kids were begging, and when you do Brahman program, they'd ask for ek taka at most, 1 rupee, or they'd ask for a few paisa. But now, you give them a 1 rupee coin, they look at you, people look at you, what is this? They won't even accept it. And the kids ask for like 20 rupees, 40 rupees. So, but with 1 paisa in those days, so now you think you're richer more wealthy because you have more rupees, say. But with 1 paisa in those days, one could purchase sufficient vegetables to provide for a whole family. Even 30 years ago, and Prabhupada is speaking for his own experience, vegetables were occasionally so inexpensive that 1 paisa, that means how many paisa in a rupee? 100. So 1 paisa could provide for a whole family for a day of vegetables. So the illusion of the increased wealth is there. So one day, so this is giving an idea. The first, we're getting a concept that this dog had joined the party, everyone going to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Shivananda Sen somehow or another allowed the dog to accompany them. He was feeding it and everything. And one day, while Shivananda was detained by a tollman, because there were tolls on the roads, his servant forgot to give the dog its cooked rice. He would feed him rice. And at night, when Shivananda Sen returned and was taking his meal, he inquired from the servant whether the dog had gotten its meals. When he learned that the dog had not been supplied food in his absence, he was very unhappy because he had accepted the dog as dependent upon him. And when someone is dependent on you, you take responsibility for their care. So then he immediately sent 10 men to find the dog. And when the men returned without success, Shivananda Sen became very unhappy. And he fasted for the night. He wouldn't eat. He was so upset that this like my child, someone who was dependent on me, I haven't been able to care for him, so he lost his own appetite. So what kind of a sensitive individual was this? So in the morning, they looked for the dog, but it could not be found anywhere. And all the Vaishnavas were astonished. Now there's in Prabhupada's purport here, it explains a little bit what's going to happen in the future. But there's more. So first I'll talk about what happened to the dog, and then we'll read this purport. Thus, in great anxiety, they all walked to Jagannath Puri, where Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu met them, as usual. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu went with them to see the Lord in the temple, to see Lord Jagannath. And on that day, he also took lunch in the company of all those devotees. As previously, the Lord provided them all with residential quarters, and the next morning all the devotees came to see the Lord. And when all the devotees came to the place of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, they saw the same dog sitting a little apart from the Lord. And furthermore, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was throwing remnants of green coconut pulp. This is the inside of the coconut. After you drink the water, there's the pulp, and it's very good for you. But he was throwing that to the dog, and he was smiling in his own way. And he was saying to the dog, chant the holy names, Rama, Krishna, and Hari. And seeing the dog eating the green coconut pulp and chanting Krishna, Krishna again and again, all the devotees there, the English were very surprised, but the Bengali word is the same as the Hindi word, chamatkar. So it's a little more than surprise, right? This is, how would you say? What would you say chamatkar is? This is something wonderful, amazing. In the word by words, it's astonish. Chamatkar. That's very common. People say that, yeah? It's something wonderful. Chamatkar.
There's another Achambit.
Huh?
There's more.
One step above.
Achambit.
Achambit, what does that mean?
Like astonishment. They just got, like, not only the miracle, but they got shocked. How it could be.
Yeah. And when he saw the dog sitting in that way and chanting the name of Krishna, Shivananda, because of his natural humility, what do you think he did? He offered his obeisances to the dog, just to counteract his offenses to it, because it was my service to take care of you, and I wasn't able to do that. Excuse me for that. So Vaishnavas are quite amazing. So he offered his obeisance, Dainyakari, with great humility, Nija aparada chama, please forgive my offenses. And the next day, Ara Dina Keha Tara Deki Na Poila. No one saw the dog again. Siddha Deha Pani Kukur, that dog in his spiritual body, Vaikuntha Gela, had gone to the spiritual world. So Prabhupada's purport here. This is the result. So now just think, this is a great book, and he's telling naturally what happened on the way when Mahaprabhu came back, and it's going to get to Rupa Goswami's second meeting with the Lord. But he's placed this, the first thing, the author has placed this as the first thing in Antya Lila. So we ask, why? What is he trying to tell us? Because we don't just read, we also consider and think. And we think more that, they're not just telling us cute stories, but there's something deep here. So this is the result of sadhu sangha, Prabhupada says in his purport, associating with sadhus, with devotees, those who are in touch with sat, eternity. Consequent association with Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, this is the result. Association with Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and promotion back home, back to Godhead. The result is even possible for a dog by the mercy of the Vaishnava. Therefore, everyone in the human form of life should be induced to associate with devotees by rendering a little service, even by eating prasadam, what to speak of chanting and dancing. Everyone can be promoted to the spiritual world, to Vaikuntha. It is therefore requested that all our devotees in the ISKCON community become pure Vaishnavas, so that by their mercy, all the people of the world will be transferred to Vaikuntha Loka, even without their knowledge. Everyone should be given a chance to take prasadam and thus be induced to chant the holy names Hare Krishna and also dance in ecstasy. By these three processes, chanting, dancing, taking prasadam, although performed even without knowledge or education, even an animal went back to Godhead. So there's one more verse in this part, and then I'll read that other purport. Such are the transcendental pastimes, the Divya Lila, transcendental pastimes done by Satchidanandana, by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the beloved son of Satchi Devi. He even delivered a dog simply by inducing it to chant the Mahamantra Hare Krishna. So that's the last verse in here. And then it goes on to a different topic. But listen to what Prabhupada says in this purport. First, it just discussed what happened, and when they couldn't find the dog, Shivananda saying observed a fast. Thus it appears that somehow or another, Shivananda had become attached to the dog. Now what does that mean? What do you get from that? Huh? Okay, you're thinking... Okay. But here, okay. What else?
Jivadaya.
Jivadaya. That somehow or another means that there's freedom on behalf of a great soul, of all of us really, but of a great soul, that somehow or another, if for whatever reason, unconventional as this is, that he just accepted this dog as part of the party. This is the mercy, the kindness, the nature, the freedom of a devotee. So somehow or another, it's not like everyone has to be attached to dogs or this or that, but just somehow or another. As will be evident in the following verses, the dog got the mercy of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and was immediately promoted to Vaikuntha, spiritual world, to become an eternal devotee. So Bhakti, here's the point, that one of the main points here that Prabhupada wants to make, or that Kaviraj Goswami wants to make. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has therefore sung, Tumi tak tokor tomara kukur, balia janaha more, from his Saranagati songs. He thus offers to become the dog of a Vaishnava. There are many other instances in which the pet animals of a Vaishnava were delivered back home, back to Godhead, such as the benefit or somehow or another becoming the favorite of a Vaishnava. Not that but somehow or another become attached to an exalted devotee, and so that somehow or another he accepts us as his. Somehow he lets us into his party, so to speak. He's going to the spiritual world. And if somehow we get accepted into his party, even if we're as qualified as a dirty dog, it doesn't make any difference. We just have to somehow get accepted by him into his party. He considers us one of his group, so to speak. And that's our part. Like the dog, you could say, made the first move. He decided he wanted to travel with them. And then Sivananda said, okay, and he fed him. But so there's Gotripte Varanam Tata. There's something about considering ourselves part of the group of an exalted devotee, or the group of belonging to Krishna. Such is the benefit of somehow or another becoming the favorite of a Vaishnava. So even the concept of the favorite of a Vaishnava. So someone could want to become the favorite of a Vaishnava, and that means that I want to become a favorite of Prabhupada, and if you want to become favorite of Prabhupada, and you want to love Prabhupada, we're going to compete for this spot of who's going to be the favorite of Prabhupada. I'm going to try and push you out of the way. Now that's not going to make someone a favorite of Prabhupada, for example. So one has to really know, the dog didn't, but one should know the mind of an exalted Vaishnava, so that you can actually act in such a way that it pleases him. And also his heart is very big, so it can accommodate more than one favorite at a time. It's somewhat of a different way of thinking, because there were devotees when Prabhupada really wanted his books distributed, because it was distribution of knowledge. So Prabhupada said, this is the most important service. So the devotees sometimes would take, this is the most important service, and your service is not the most, if you really want to please Prabhupada, then you do this. And everything else is lower class, second class. But one time Prabhupada was too upset, and I heard him say one of the things myself, but he said, because I say this is the most important service, it doesn't mean that also isn't the most important service. It's somewhat of a different way of thinking. So you really have to know the heart of the person to please him. And we know a little bit and act a little superficially, and we think, but it's more subtle than that generally. But whatever we offer, it will be accepted. And I just, in this way, I once heard Prabhupada, and I heard him say this himself in Fiji. someone was trying to get another devotee who he didn't like very much for good or bad reasons. He was trying to get Prabhupada to criticize him. So he said, what about devotees who aren't into book distribution, but are only into farms, communities? And Prabhupada said that, do you think the spiritual master is a dumb stone who can't instruct different disciples in different ways? So somehow if one gets a service that is pleasing to Krishna through the devotees, somehow or another if one gets that, then one is very fortunate. It's a sign of Krishna's blessing, Krishna's favor. And we should hold on to that tightly. Do you have a service like that?
I have a small program in Dayton that we started, and we do kirtan every week, and it's the only service that I have, and I feel like it's what I'm supposed to be doing.
You're trying to help others?
Yes, that's what we do.
And do you get any response?
We do. We have 15 to 20 people come a week, and then we feed prasadam, and they're slowly growing. The community's growing, and people are going to retreats and hearing lectures. I don't feel qualified to teach, but it feels like my job is to open the door, not to really do anything after that at this point. It's the instructions that I have right now.
Who gave you those instructions?
So, my Guru Maharaj.
Who was that?
By Sri Caitanya.
And he told you to do that? He's happy with you for doing that?
This time he is. It seems like. I hope.
How do you? Well,
he has given me his blessing with the program.
who is that calling?
Surajit Chakravarti.
Okay. Let me finish. Anyway, nice. Just do it as an offering. And also Jivadaya. I mean, the people who are coming, they probably need a little bit of help and some knowledge, some enlightenment, He didn't ask who was talking. He could have said, it's Bhurijana. That would have been great. His name is Bhurijana. So we have brothers. There are many other instances in which the pet animals of a Vaishnava were delivered back home, such as the benefit of somehow or another becoming the favorite of a Vaishnava. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has also sung, Kita Janma Hoy Yata Tua Das. There is no harm in taking birth again and again. Our only desire should be to take birth under the care of a Vaishnava. Fortunately, Prabhupada is saying, we had the opportunity to be born of a Vaishnava father who took care of us very nicely. He prayed to Srimati Radharani that in the future we would become a servant of the eternal consort of Sri Krishna. Thus, somehow or another, we are now engaged in that service. We may conclude that even as dogs, we must take shelter of a Vaishnava. The benefit will be the same as that which accrues to an advanced devotee under a Vaishnava's care. What do you think? What?
The chances of dogs are higher than me.
What do you think, Bhajbihari?
I just remember the first time I met you, I chastised you for not being in the book distributor.
Yeah. And I probably had a good, arrogant reply.
You picked up your plate and moved to a different table. I didn't know who you were.
I didn't know who you were. What do you think? I mean, what we read.
By the association of devotees, we can get the mercy of Lord. As dog get the mercy of Lord.
Somehow or another. What do you think, Damodar Prabhu?
You're doing something out of love.
What do you think, Mataji?
I feel myself very fortunate because you are engaging me in this.
I feel very fortunate because you're feeding me.
Krishna is feeding you. I witnessed it.
What do you think of this, about all the things we heard?
I think I was reflecting on how blessed I am with the association that I do have, and how I was thinking of the people where I'm the dog. I was envisioning these Vaishnavas that have picked me up and just kind of dragged me along in various places, completely undeservedly. So that story was really compelling and reflecting on the Vaishnavas that
Kind to you.
have shown me a lot of mercy, undeserved, very much so.
Samantha, Sam. Can I call you Samantha?
Sure.
Okay.
The metaphor you gave about wasn't the metaphor, but the mosquitoes thinking that our body is for them, and we're in Krishna's body essentially. And I was thinking, we're like, if we're not serving, then we're basically mosquitoes on Krishna's body, just thinking it's for us. And then I was thinking, wouldn't it be incredible if mosquitoes served us instead?
No, you have a new mission.
That's what they're doing.
Preach for the mosquitoes.
Serving Krishna's body, however that takes form. And it would feel better for everybody if we did, instead of just thinking it was for us.
Yeah. And it's, I feel bad talking about it, but I remember, growing up when we didn't have any compassion for insects or anything like that. You just, flies, just kill them. Ants, kill them. What to speak of mosquitoes, kill them. Yeah, there was no thought that they didn't like to be killed. So instead, some compassion. Okay, I think we're finished for the night. Hare Krishna, good night.